Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Imagine, if you will, a Scotsman with a keen interest in all the world and all the things in it, with a very particular fascination with Celtic folklore and the culture of the Gaelic peoples. A scholar, an author, a traveler, a rambling Renaissance man who trekked to different parts of the globe in the middle of the 19th century. While this description may in fact seem itself like a bit of folklore, it is in fact an accurate introduction to the man pictured here. John Francis Campbell, life dates 1821 to 1885. A native of Islay, he journeyed far and wide during his lifetime. His story was brought to my attention by Roy Blumenfeld, a subscriber who has become a friend and a person who, like me, enjoys adventures down the research rabbit hole into the far corners of time and history. Thank you, Roy. Now, back to John Francis Campbell. Among his many works is a book titled A Short American Tramp in the Fall of 1864, in which Campbell documents his travels into the wilds of Canada and the United States, the latter deep into the third year of a brutal and bloody civil war. Talk about timing. I want to share a passage from his book where Campbell describes Cave City, Mammoth Cave, and the rugged Kentucky countryside while reflecting on American hardiness, improvisation, and military resourcefulness. He praises U.S. soldiers' adaptability, contrasts European dependence on comfort, and recounts Major General William T. Sherman's precarious position in the vicinity of Atlanta. His keen gift of observation and his abilities as a writer reveal America's practical culture shaped in its hospitals, armies, and its attitudes towards war and self reliance. So let's begin in Cave City. Campbell writes, Cave City consists of 3 shops, 3 dwelling houses, 3 eating houses, 3 log shanties, and a railway station. But, like the priest, the friar, and the silly old man who went to a garden where 3 pears grew, took one apiece, and yet left 2 pears. Cave City consists of 3 shanties, which may be variously described. A capital dinner is to be got there, and the landlord is a right good fellow. Gentlemen, he said, have you anything valuable about you? In any other country of bushwhackers, this would have been a suspicious question. Here, the landlord's face was a certificate of honesty, and the answer was yes. You had better believe what you care to lose with me, said the landlord, and so he gave him a handful of loose Yankee gold and the unlocked portmanteau with the English sovereigns inside of it. On returning, we gathered up our gear and thanked our banker. The Mammoth Cave is a favorite summer resort, much frequented in peaceful times by rich citizens of rich towns in this rich state, and the road to it may be taken as a fair sample of country roads. It is a mere track in a hardwood forest with a pretty thick undergrowth of scrub and trailing plants. Creepers hang to the highest branches of tall trees, and it is hard to understand how, in the name of fortune, they get there, unless tree and creeper grow together. A thing as thick as a rope and as long as a tree cannot stand alone, and yet such things have their branches interlaced with the topmost twigs of tall trees and swing free of other supports from root to branch. According to the accounts of men who fought with Sherman on his advance to Atlanta, this is the kind of country in which battles were fought and a long advance made. The troops had no tents, but made bowers of branches and did regular bush fighting. At such work, an American army greatly excels one recruited in Europe. The European is born and bred in a house and is used to have everything done for him. If a mechanic is lodged under a hedge, or if a pauper gets hard fare in England, we hear about it. Everywhere in America, except in the large towns, men are to be found who live chiefly out of doors, and even picnic parties of town ladies think nothing of camping out for a night or two in the summer. When an old country weaver down in his luck enlists, he expects to be well lodged in a comfortable, well ventilated room with a bed in it. If he is not, we hear about it again. When the same kind of man emigrates, he soon learns to rough it. When he has to do everything for himself and pay for it, he learns to do with very little. And when he enlists and camps out and chops wood and sleeps on the ground, he is doing nothing out of the ordinary routine of his daily life at home. A lumbering train of baggage wagons would find American backwood ways rather miry and rocky. But the country carts which haul farm produce over these ways can also haul provisions. The woods provide fuel and shelter, the leaves make a bed, and the blue sky a healthy roof in fine weather. Thus, bush fighting is but a pleasant picnic with some very disagreeable seasoning and the dish of pleasure. There is rather too much pepper in it. At Louisville are establishments for remedying the evil effects of lead and steel taken inwardly. These military hospitals are worthy of an army. When the war began, one of the chief officers in charge was asked to go to Europe to study the hospital system there. As he says, it seemed to him that hospitals in old countries were great erections of stone and lime meant to stand forever. So he declined and asked leave to study within his own circle of thought. A great stone edifice was not wanted in the West, where everything grows from the stump. Instead, the wooden shanty architecture of the prairies was twisted into the form of a wheel, with the doctor's shop and kitchen in the middle, and the sick beds in the spokes, and the hospital was ready for action in no time. The country principle of doing oneself was adopted by the doctor. He learned everybody's work by doing it himself before he set others to do it. And so the hospital acted well from the first and acts right well now. Bringing the doctor's chemical knowledge to bear on the kitchen, the cook was set to make decoctions and extracts. And the result was excellent food, no waste, no refuse, no matter in the wrong place, which is a polite name for stinks and dirt. With utter contempt for precedent, the doctor went to work and he found out a new cure for hospital gangrene, which saved many lives. He certainly did not prevent hospital gangrene, for he had a tent full of patients. Let those who encourage war walk through a military hospital and ask to see the patients afflicted with hospital gangrene. The American people, army, and hospital are things made not for ornament, but for practical use. They are all admirable and all work remarkably well, but as it seems to me, they are now doing for themselves as fast as they possibly can. My American politics are those of Jeanette. I'll pause here for a second to tell you that Jeanette is a reference to a folk song titled Jeanette and Jeannot. Now, Campbell shares the lyrics to describe his politics. If I were a king of France, or what is better, Pope of Rome, there should be no fighting men abroad, no weeping maids at home. All the world should be at peace, or if kings must show their might, why, let those who make the quarrels be the only ones to fight. If I were asked to express my views on a transatlantic politics, I should propose a grand concert of kings, kaisers, and colonists with the refrain, let those who make the quarrels be the only ones to fight. It seemed in October 1864 that General Sherman was in a mess. The rail was broken some way down. Guards, black and white, were at every spot where a black guard of guerrilla could stop the train by sawing a post and a scaffold bridge, or by sawing down the signal post at a station. It seemed impossible that the general could hold Atlanta with such a train behind him unless the South were fairly done. Of course, he's talking about supply lines. Campbell continues. Soon afterwards, a Southern army got round Atlanta between Sherman and his western farm, and as it appeared in January 1865, this army got a good whipping, but the cracker line which bound Sherman to the western states was cut, and he was adrift. If they could not crush or extract him, the best thing the Southern doctors could do with this bullet-headed general was to squeeze him out. And in spite of all the triumphant songs that have been sung over Sherman's victory, I still think that he was in a mess, out of which he was cleverly helped by his foes. They got behind him and on both sides of him, gave him his head and let him go, and he went like a bird to the coast. He made tracks, and his were like the duck's morning track from the feeding ground on shore to a refuge at sea at sunrise. With a well-found army, in excellent health and good condition, made of country materials and fit for a rough country work, it was an easy march. It was the interest of the South to make a bridge of gold, to cut a fresh wound through her own bleeding sides, or to do anything to get rid of that terrible Yankee missile with the big square head. But if the patient is exhausted, what avails military surgery? Time will show the results. The North will whip the South, as I believe, but nations live long, and the South will resent the blow for all time. The end of the Yankee War has yet to come, but when it does come, perhaps it will not be peace. There's a little fortune telling by Campbell, the Scotsman, the collector of folklore, and the tramper through America. But thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.